Hi, Kate Riddick.
Hello, Emily Miller.
How are you?
I'm all right. I was scrambling trying to take our mutes off. Mutes.
Me.
And I was scrambling also for Christy and me. Oh my God, my coffee. It's over by the other computer.
I have tea today because I can't overdo the coffee and it gives me the jitters.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm needing that coffee. Well, happy Friday to you, Em. Happy Free Tip Friday to you and everybody out there who's watching. We've got a couple of things to take care of before we even get started. So many people are here. So many
I don't
are.
have my iPad, so you guys are going to have to yell really
Yeah,
loud.
I'll tell you what. Let's see.
Hi to everybody who I can't see. Sorry.
Yes, so many. Everyone's here. I'll put
Excellent.
up a few hellos.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely.
JP, of course, is here saying hello to everybody.
Thank you, JP, for being there with us.
Yes, happy Friday to all of you all. Janice says she's so happy and so excited about this episode. I am too. We've got, I want you to talk a little bit about the history of this, Em. But first, I wanted to, pardon me. I wanted to say that you have been real busy with your holiday markets.
I have. We've been so lucky to have really nice weather here in Sacramento. Cold but clear is looking like the forecast for the next couple of weeks. So we are out in full force at the Midtown Market.
I love it.
In Midtown Sacramento, which is sort of the arts and theater district. It's kind of the, a little more galleries, a little more boutiques, a little more
yeah, kind of
local
fun.
breweries, coffee places, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I love it. Love.
Yep.
Well, so people can find you at that market, and I know that you also, it's the thing that I look forward to when you post your display of the day. I don't always comment, but I always look at it and go,
Yeah. Well, I gotta say that doing craft fairs or art shows, or I don't even know what to call it, farmers markets or markets in general.
Right.
It's a lot of work. it's, you're packing your car, you're loading up, you're pre-planning, you got all your display stuff, and I have a lot of infrastructure, some of my neighbors will say. Setting up tables, drapes and, signage and canopies and yada, yada, yada. And my most favorite part is once I get everything set up, all the displays are in place, putting the layers on the mannequins and on the neck forms and stuff. That is it's the most fun. And it's sort of worth it, to do all the other work to get to that one stage. And so I do take a picture every Saturday, usually in the first couple hours that I'm there, of some kind of a display, what I call display of the day. It's the one that makes me the most happy. So
love.
And show off my old, my vintage mannequins.
Yeah, your setup is so fantastic, and it really evokes, you and I were chatting before we went on, lamenting about how, there aren't as many brick and mortar stores or whatever as there used to be. And, but you create a brick and mortar kind of out on the street every week, which is kind of cool.
I do.
Yeah.
And I do have people come into my booth and say, "Hey, where's your store?" Thinking that I have a store somewhere, and I'm like, "Well, you're standing in it."
You're standing in my store. Yeah, no, it's really awesome. So if you folks have not followed Emily, or you're looking for jewelry for the holidays, you can find it. Emily, it's not
Emily B. Miller Jewelry.
Emily B. Miller Jewelry. Janice is going to put up the put up the link.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I really love making jewelry. I make all the jewelry as if I was going to keep it for myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do, but it's it's a real joy, and it's really one of my expressive art forms that I really love. So
yeah, well, it's really fantastic. And so folks, go over, that's the best way if you want to grab a piece of Emily's special pieces, like her crocheted pieces. She makes really great earrings. I have my unbreakable heart sitting right over here, which I love.
Yeah, if you see something on Instagram, message me. I'll see if it's still available. If it's not, we'll find you something that's similar. Most of my pieces are really kind of one-offs, but there may be something related. So
let me see. Janice is having, I'm gonna B. Miller Jewelry. Let me find it. There you are. Hold, please.
and I make these great little brass tags, which I do share often, sometimes with quite saucy sayings.
I know, I love it.
And so it's not to everyone's taste, but I do, I do funny sayings, I do smart alecky sayings, I do topical sayings. So and I can make them for you custom if you have something you want it to say. Like I did a bunch of girl gang ones for someone in Austin, and I've done tacos before vatos for a bunch of girls who
Yes, love.
and we can do
I have mine that you gave me, thinly veiled facade.
I definitely take inspirations from my people. I do thinly veiled facade quite often.
Thinly veiled facade is on my keys because
Yeah.
that is my mantra. Thinly veiled facade.
How are you doing? I'm fine. It's a thinly veiled facade.
Yep. I've been saying that for the last 20 years, however long I've known Emily. So but I did want to give Emily a big shout out because I know a lot of you like to shop small. And we appreciate you shopping small with us at Bead Shop, and with Emily, with me. So last night I had a market.
I saw that. How did it go? Those crazy
really
earrings. You had a million of them.
Yeah, I'm wearing them too. So I as you know, I've got my studio over at M Street Art Complex here in Fresno, and it was really fun. It was Art Hop, right before the holidays. There are a couple of really great businesses that I want to give a shout out to. Let me see if I can.
Looked like you had a bunch of really fun people come through.
Yeah, no, it's super awesome. It is, I'm going to say I think it's Create Studio Fresno. It's my friend Rena. Yeah, there's her Insta. I'll grab it. It's my friend Rena. She does such cool stuff. It's right here. I just put it in the chat. I'll
Awesome.
put it there.
I can't wait to look for that.
She does all of these really cool stickers and stuff. So if you look on my Insta and you see the pet posters and stuff that I have one.
I saw those new sayings.
Yeah, that's I'm really big in Fresno. That kind of thing. It's super cool. She makes cards. She does all kinds of really fun stuff. She does also a lot of mixed media, which we're going to be talking about a little bit in the new year. But Rena is super awesome. She's got the hustle going on. So you can find her there. You can also, last night, I did a little Instagram art hop up on my Insta. So if you have wanted some of my patches, which are here, some of my crazy galaxy earrings that I'm wearing today, some of you have already messaged me.
I have a patch here somewhere right close by.
Right, your patch. I know. I love them so much. So they're on there. You can claim them on Insta and I'll invoice you and send them out. Yeah, Margaret, you have no idea how big I am in the we call it Frez Yes.
So 2 weeks ago at the Market Kate, I met a lady and her friends, and they were a girl gang. They have vests that they wear that have saucy sayings on the back and patches all over them. And I was like, I'm going to steal that idea. She goes, please go ahead. So I kind of feel like we need to kind of figure out some kind of something to wear.
I will tell you what, I totally agree. And this here's my bead, Kate. Oh, thanks, JP, for putting it up. Um,
Sort
that's
of like
kind of what
old ladies.
this piece that you're making is kind of all about. It's all
Yes,
about embellishing. It's
yes.
all about personalizing. You know, a little bit later on today, you folks will see it was in the newsletter today. I'm going to go on a live at 3:30 Pacific time with my buddy Jen Cushman. We're going to talk about the France trip for next year. We'll be talking soon about the retreat here in Fresno. There's been a lot of retreat chat in the chat. So yes, we will give you more opportunities, more learning opportunities, not only online. Sorry, I've gotta do this.
What?
Sorry. I mean, it's just a little dose of realness. But more learning opportunities, not only in person, but online as well. So we've got that happening. So without further ado, my darling, I am going to add your
You're not gonna put up your thing about where to find us. Usually, you do that first.
oh, thanks, Em. Okay, why
I was
not?
just waiting for that. I'm like, I know
Yeah,
my
I got thanks.
right
Thanks
after
for
that.
keeping me on task. I'm going to cover Emily's beautiful face. That's right. Thank you, Emily. Where to find us? You know where it is. Facebook, The Bead Table, Instagram, tag us at beadshop.com, Pinterest pages, so many wonderful ideas. Hit that like, subscribe, and notification button if you're watching us live or on replay, because our YouTube is growing by leaps and bounds, and I am so grateful for you all for that. If you have questions, reach out. Always on the other side of the computer at info@beadshop.com. If it's the weekend, we might be a little slower because we're trying to do a little bit of self-care here, but we'll get back to you. Always business hours. Tria is always on it. All right. Thank you, my friend, for keeping me on
I
task.
didn't want you to forget, because that's important. You
Who
got
are
to
you and what day is this? Oh my God.
Well, and it's so funny. I don't usually do Fridays because I'm getting ready for the market,
Mm-hmm.
but this is more than a free tip Friday. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So free tip Fridays have evolved into just another Wednesday.
They really
They're no longer just a little short something.
yeah. Yeah.
They're a full on thing.
They're full on, especially today.
And definitely for sure today. So Kate and I both have had a long-term love affair with initials and monograms, and I came to it because my grandmother just monogrammed everything that she owned that wasn't nailed down, and a few things that were. And so I've always really liked monograms and looking at them. I think they're kind of like a little bit of history. Um, I remember, oh gosh, this goes back a ways. The Laverne and Shirley show where Laverne always had an L on her
That
shirt.
The L, yeah. I
I
always
I loved all that. I love that personalization, and um, we've been talking about bead embroidery and kind of getting back to it. And we have been slowly kind of creeping in on it, and really this was a kind of a no-brainer, was to do an initial, and or you could do this as a monogram. And I started looking around for transfers for initials and didn't find a ton that I really loved. So I made you some.
you
So
did, which I'm gonna go ahead and
I'm gonna throw up a link for that.
well, we'll throw up a link. They're on the project page. I'm gonna go
Okay.
ahead and just solo lay out your piece here so
Sure.
people can see it nice and big. Emily, I love that you made initials, and B, you gave us these stencils. I can't wait to make my girl gang patch.
Well, I thought these stencils would just make your life so much easier, and I just picked two fonts, and I'll tell you that I did it on my computer. It took a little bit of time, but it was not crazy hard.
Mhm,
I think I went into like 150 or 143 point font, and
mhm.
typed out some letters and printed them out and kind of looked at them ways. And I got to tell you, I did some tests several times before I remembered that I needed to make them backwards. And so
Right.
um, using the program that comes with my Mac, which is Pages, it actually lets you reverse everything. So what I've sent you to print out on the website is all going to have the letters in reverse. Because if we're going to make this letter right way round, we have to have the backwards. Have to have it backwards. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. If it feels confusing, just trust me. If you're going to do it this way, you got to have a backwards letter. So we have a typewriter font and a plain one. Huh?
You're going to show us how to do that transfer.
I'm going to show you how to do it right now. I'm going to do it first.
All right.
So I like these little squares. You can do whichever font you like. I have a real love for the typewriter font. It's kind of one of my favorites. I use it all the time. And it's just one that I like a lot. But I want to show you how to do a transfer onto a piece of Ultrasuede. I use a little bit of paper, just regular printer paper in the back to give me a little bit of stiffness, but it's still easy to stitch through. And that paper stays in place. It never goes away. It's actually still in this little guy, just the way I've done other bead embroidery projects like the pear and the little stained glass one that we did ages ago. Both these are done exactly the same way. If you want to use a cardstock, like it feels too floppy for you, or if you have a really lightweight Ultrasuede that you want to use, you can use cardstock if you want. But this is the best, most fun thing, and I love doing it. Just take a pencil. Doesn't matter what kind of pencil, but it's better if it's a little bit softer lead. So a 2 or a softer, even softer than that would work great. But you just go around and outline the letter. And it doesn't have to be perfect. With this A, there's a lot of kind of interior little corners in there. And I'm going to go around and outline the whole letter with the pencil. And this, you can use this technique to transfer anything you want, any design that you've made. You can use this to transfer. I think it's kind of magical. I did not discover this. This is well-known information.
Yeah, this is super old school, super
right?
old school.
But it's exactly what we need for this project.
Yeah, I love it.
So it works perfectly. I'm going to take my Ultrasuede, and sometimes my Ultrasuede gets stuck in the tube and I have to use my tweezers to reach in there and grab it out. Take my Ultrasuede, and I'm going to lay my Ultrasuede down. Actually, it's better on a firmer surface. So let me just move that up there. And I'm going to lay my letter down on the Ultrasuede. And, you know, sort of near the edge with a little bit of border. And then you can pretty much take anything. A Sharpie works fine. You just need something that's got kind of a firm but smooth little edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
Burnish over it. This is one of my favorite like tricks of the trade.
Yeah, love it.
You know, you can do this with a bunch of different things. You do this with for metalsmithing. You could use a little paper that we used to use between our pages when we were typing. You know, transfer paper, and it transfers the letter.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Onto Ultrasuede. How
so good. And this will work. So Catherine's asking, will this work with real suede? It'll work.
Sure.
With anything, really.
Yeah.
It's a super cool, tried and true. My mom is saying she transferred like that when she did toll painting.
Yeah.
It's really, that is, Emily, that is worth the price.
So satisfying.
Yeah, worth the price of admission. So good.
So super satisfying. Right? Look at that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Now, your Ultrasuede may vary a little bit from side to side. If you mess one side up, you have a couple of chances to use this because we're going to make the Ultrasuede into a sandwich ultimately, right? Mm-hmm. So here's another C. Here's the paper. I could use the other side of this and have that be this C. If I've messed up that C, I can put that on the inside. And we're going to end up with another sandwich on the back. And I could have something on the inside as well. So don't worry too much if you make a little burble and it doesn't quite turn out the way you were imagining it to. It's quite fine. You'll be fine. I don't usually cut my Ultrasuede ahead of time, but you can if you feel like you want to. It's a nice big piece that comes in the tube. And now I've got some useful scraps for smaller projects. I chose to make my letters fairly big. And I'll put a ruler on them just to tell you what they kind of are as finished products. I chose to make my letters fairly big because I wanted them to read as a letter. And I really felt if I got much smaller than this, I would be restricted in the kind of beads that I would use, and I wouldn't have as many options. We could scale all of these beads down, right? I
Mhm.
used the long bugle, I used 11s, I used 8s, half tilas, I used the delicate spacers, more 11s, more 8s. We could scale this down into 15s and shorter bugles, the short bugle, and the quarter-tilas if we wanted to make this a smaller letter. But I
Mhm.
don't think we could go very much smaller. This is just a little, not quite 2 1/4. Yeah, maybe just right on the edge of 2 1/4 overall long. And the E is might be even just a little scotch bigger, right?
Mhm.
So I did these in 2 different ways, also to give you the option of you can do these letters either direction. Um, I felt with the letter itself that it made more sense to do it this way. The B has these encapsulated openings, and I left them with the Ultrasuede showing through.
Mhm.
So we could have filled that in as well, but I felt that doing it this way made that letter read more like the letter B.
Right, right.
On the E, because there's all this internal channeling that got quite small, I really felt that if I did fill that all in, again, it wouldn't quite read like that letter E. So to balance it, otherwise I would have a little weird gap right here.
Right, right,
Balance
right.
it, I went ahead and left a border. And really, on these letters, it's your choice. I think on the C, again, like the E, because it has that small opening there, it'll
Mhm.
read a little bit more like a letter if I leave that border, leave that edge around it like I did with the
Mhm.
E. On the A that I just did, I could kind of go either way, I think, on this one. You know, this part at the bottom, it's such a clearly an A,
Mhm.
doesn't read as anything else. It's your choice. You could kind of go either way. But as you kind of look through the letters, you're going to make a decision which way you want to play this. If you want to do it with more of a background, if you want to do it with more using the shape of the letter to help define that edge, you could do either one.
And Emily, the fonts, you chose 2 fonts, one with the
Yes,
serif, one with the sans serif.
right.
And you'll find those. Emily's 2 projects are called, it's Brenda and Emmeline.
Yes.
And those, of course, right now, if you're watching us live, they're right on line, on the homepage, the link to them. But you can find them under our bead embroidery section, along with those other really cool pieces that are at the upper left hand, the pear for Pear Festival, and that really cool stained glass window one that you did for bead embroidery.
And this one, this has the same idea. You have a little bit of material showing around the
Mhm,
edges. I could have cut this much closer.
mhm,
Could have made the border much more dominant if I
mhm,
wanted to. It's kind of your choice.
mhm,
You do you.
mhm,
I did feel like I chose a couple of different stitches that really did kind of have help to accent these letters. And
mhm,
when you're looking at the letter, kind of realize that you want it to read as a letter, from a normal viewing distance,
mhm.
2 or 3 feet from you, you would like it to read as a letter. If I'm going to spell out beads here, I want all the letters to be real legible. Um, I could have picked a different color background, a different green, and still kept these green beads, and it would be a little brighter even still. I do find that I think I found on these that I did like that monochromatic kind of look to it.
Mhm.
I think it just is a little easier to choose beads, and it certainly gives you plenty of variety to work with. We have plenty of
Mhm.
colors in every color category, so
Mhm.
we don't have to worry about running out of styles of beads. Uh,
Mhm.
when I got started doing bead embroidery, studying with Robin Atkins, who was a teacher back in the day, used to
Yeah.
travel and teach bead embroidery and all kinds of beading. She would have us do things that were sort of very kind of painterly like almost. We would
Mhm.
we would place some objects and then work around them.
Right, right. So you kind of make the connection between this object over here to
Yeah.
that object to the right. Yeah, I loved that style of beading.
I like that too. With the letters, I found actually it was a little easier to actually do the outline first and then
Hmm.
fill it in. And I do think this keeps your letter shape really crisp. So it gives you really a little bit of room to work inside. And if it feels like this looks like a daunting amount of area to cover, do the outline first because
Right, smart.
that will really show you how much work you have to do. And it's faster than you think. I think I might have spent maybe 3 hours start to finish on these.
So
Um,
not super
so
long.
not that long.
Mm-mm.
I also thought as we were talking about these over this time frame, and we do projects sometimes take months in development. One of the things that I've been seeing a lot of, and Kate, you mentioned it last week too, I think, was bag charms.
Yes.
So a little charm to hang on your your bag strap. It would be really simple to take a piece of leather, and this is just happened to be what was a scrap of lots of leather floating around at my house,
Mm-hmm.
and actually position it inside the sandwich that we're going to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in between the front and the back layers, when I'm ready to close it up and glue it in place, and I probably would put a little knot. I might put a bead on here or something, but give myself a good enough loop that I could loop it on to the strap. I think these would be super cute on a gift bag for a gift. It would make that gift so incredibly special and so incredibly
Yeah.
thoughtful. I think it would be a great place to kind of put something new that you made.
And people love a monogram. I don't care who you are. It's so super classic. And I love, Emily, the use of those bugle beads right there. And
Bugle beads
that,
are unsung heroes in bead
yeah.
embroidery.
And it
They
makes it so
really,
fast, right?
yes, it moves quickly. It moves
Oh,
along quickly.
I just love that one. C for Catherine.
Right?
Love.
So this is only 3 beads. Bugle beads,
Mm-hmm.
the delicate spacer bead, and an 11. Only 3 beads, right? Shocking.
Shocker.
Shocker. Now, I got to tell you also a bead that I am highly in love with these days. So it's those 3 beads. Oh, no, wait. Where's the bugle? Where's those bugles at? Didn't I just have them in my hand a second
Where are
ago?
my bugles at? Well, they're there somewhere.
Yeah. I kid you not. I feel like I just had them in my hand and was looking at them.
Well, we can see them right there on that C.
All right. So 3 beads. I mean, really quick to pick out and easy to choose from for this kind of a design. So again, a great little bag charm, right?
So cute. And I love, Emily, what I'm seeing there. I know you're saying bag charm, but you know what else? What I'm seeing is like, that would be like a cool statement necklace, almost like a kind of a quote in air quotes bolo tie kind of thing.
I just went to bolo tie when you started to say that, and
Right?
I
Because that could come
absolutely
around and you could make some little beaded doodads for the bottom.
mhm,
That would be
exactly.
super boho and super cool. I
Yeah,
love.
and bolo ties I don't know, they have a life of their own.
I I love a bolo. I'm
I
not
don't
gonna
know that
say
they're
no.
ever completely out, but I
Yeah,
think they really have a great they do have a really great
yeah.
add in to all of our options. The
No,
other
love.
bead I was going to mention that I really have to say I appreciate, and this kind of ties in with all the stuff I do in bead embroidery. It's really nice to have a selection of beads, and these Tila mixes give you a really nice selection of sizes,
Mhm,
shapes, and colors.
mhm.
Really great for bead embroidery. I think these are the ones that JP sent me. Oh, there's
Mhm.
my bugles.
Oh, there they are.
There
Yeah.
they are. Ah! I think JP sent me a couple of mixes long ago. Um, this was the other one.
Oh, I love that kind of tutti frutti or whatever it's
Yeah,
called.
it's kind
Island.
of like Miami Beach
Yeah,
feel.
Island Breeze, or it's
Mhm.
there on the
It
thing.
says Turquoise Dreams,
Nice.
right? Very southwestern, but it's got a really great mix. So
Yeah.
little bits of mixes Really, really helpful. All of our monthly mixes, super nice for bead embroidery because you don't really need very much.
Mm-mm, you really,
You just
really
need a
don't.
smattering, and it's nice to have some other shapes. So let me show you what I do next.
Yeah, so let's get to stitch. I cannot wait to get to stitching.
So I like to baste my paper onto the back of my front of my Ultrasuede. And I think this takes just a moment, but I think it's a really useful skill to do because it holds everything together for you. I'm going to use a sharps needle. I'm going to get it threaded up here. And just so that it's real visible, I'm going to use a green thread. And I am using the KO. So I know I've talked a lot lately about Fireline and how much I have been using it for bead weaving. I think it's too stiff for this project. So we would like to tension ourselves a little bit, sort of mindfully here, because we don't want to pull the fabric too tight and give you puckers and things like that. So I do a little knot at the end of my thread. And the way I do it is I take my sharps needle and I lay the end of the thread on the eye of the needle, hold it there, and then I make a bunch of twists around, grab my thumb, pull the needle through, and that makes a kind of a tight little knot. I will also give you another little tip, helps me a lot anyway, is I don't need any tail of thread there beside the knot. So I'm just going to cut it off so that I don't have anything kind of catching me. I feel like bead embroidery is one of those stitches where it's really nice to not have anything kind of in your immediate area where your thread can get caught on it while you're working. It's just so frustrating. So just taking a little bit of um, copy paper, take a slice of paper out of your printer, and just to baste around this square to hold everything in place, I think is really what I need to do. And this is just, basting is just big stitches. Again, we don't want to pull and make puckers. We just want to baste it in place. And this will just hold things together. And I will eventually take this out, and your thread, it won't show. I think I have it on the back of this C. You can actually see the holes where the basting thread was. I took it out already.
And Emily, did you say which needle you're using?
I use a 10 sharps.
Okay.
This is the time I really like a sharps needle. Everybody has their own needle opinion. Kate and I vary, but I think sharps are nice for this process because they're stiff. So they give you a little bit of ability to push through the fabric. If you were doing this on a heavier fabric than this, you might want to use a regular sewing needle just to give you a little bit more ability to push through the fabric. If you decide to do it on leather, a real leather or a real suede, bless you. I think it's going to be a little hard on the hands, but you may triumph. And I would probably choose to mount my finished embroidered letter on leather rather than trying to stitch originally onto leather.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little hard on the hands.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I think it's going to be maybe more trouble than it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
But doing a little basting stitch, I mean, how long does that take? Did anybody time me? A couple minutes.
Yeah, not long.
Not long, right? So all this is doing is kind of holding things in place so that when I start to stitch, my paper stays in place and I don't have to worry too much. Now, I periodically also will tie a knot. I don't always knot between every element. You certainly can if you desire, but periodically I will go along and tie a knot. And I'll tell you why. If we're going to wear these on clothing, on garments, there's sometimes a chance that it gets caught, the beadwork gets caught on something.
Mm-hmm.
So little loop I made with that knot. It's unfortunate. That's okay. Just going to cut that off so I don't have to muck with it. Okay. So if you end up having your beadwork get tugged on by clothing or getting caught on something, some of the beadwork will come loose, and then you will run up against a knot eventually, and then you know where to repair.
Mm-hmm.
On a piece like this, where I did the all over the same, this is like a stack stitch, so it's very, very short fringes that are stacked up at size
Right.
8 with a size 15 on top of it.
So
So
cute.
as you do your stacks like this, the bigger the bead you put underneath. So this is a great place for sequins. It's a great place for daisy spacers. It's a great place for flat metal bead spacers that you've got. I mean, there's a bunch of things you could choose. As you do that little short stack, you want to make sure that the bead that you use for the end, in this case, I used a 15, that bead is small enough so that you actually see some of the bead underneath, right? That's kind of the point. So on this particular one, I did the outline first, and I did a back stitch all the way around. And then I've also really learned something about beadwork and about bead embroidery, and I didn't do this before. I tend to look at things and say, it's not perfect. And I say it in my own head. I really don't say it out loud very often. And I never say it to someone else. It's lovely, but it's not perfect. I don't even think about other people's work. I think it about my own.
Mm-hmm.
So doing back stitch or doing a stitch where we loop down a long strand of thread or long strand of beads, we can do either one to go some distance. But to really make it, to sort of smooth it out and to make it look more consistent and more uniform, I actually ran my thread around this border a couple times.
Just to give it a little oomph.
Yeah, it really helped, I think, get it a little bit more straight, a little more consistent. And all those things just made me so much happier with the look.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I've ever thought about doing that before. So if you find that your long straight stretches look a little wobbly, or if one of your stacks is a little bit loose, you didn't pull it quite as tight as you might like, just work your needle over there and go back through it again. You're fine.
Yeah. It'll give it a little. There's a couple of questions here, Em, that
Sure.
I wanna throw out.
Go ahead.
And I think you covered it a little bit, but I just want to make sure that people. So the paper that you used is kind of like a stiffening agent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
just a little bit, it gives you a little bit of flatness.
yeah, because you're not hooping this,
Right.
right? So you could use paper, you could use
Cardstock.
cardstock, you could
You're
even
certainly
use
right.
like a thin interfacing
Sure.
if you had whatever it is. But what this does is it stiffens the piece because Emily's not putting in a hoop
Right.
to stretch it or to make it stable, and the paper
Yeah.
adds
And
stability.
you like your piece to be sort of stiff. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to have much stiffness in there, but it's nice to
Mhm.
have a little bit of backbone
Mhm.
to it.
Mhm. Okay, so you're going to start outlining, yeah?
Yeah, I am. So I think I'll start outlining with this back stitch and just show you how I would do it.
Okay.
Now, this is where I ended my basting stitch. That's fine. I can start wherever I want on this piece. I, for some reason, because it's a letter, I really struggled not to be working with it sort of upside down. I needed to work with it right side up for some reason. And I cannot tell you why. It just sort of seemed like that was the good thing to me. So one thing that you want to remember about bead embroidery, and this is embroidery in general, your stitch ends when your needle comes back to the front side, right? Back side or underside, front side. So every time you make a stitch, until you bring that needle back up to the front side, your stitch really isn't done. So I'm going to start by coming from the back to the front. And you can start anywhere you like on the letter, doesn't matter, right? And now I need to get some beads out. So I'm going to do the same kind of combination I did on the E in the greens. And I'm going to change my thread color, actually. I'm going to change the whole thing. Hold on. I changed my mind. I changed my mind. I'm going to change the threads because I wanted to do the green thread so you could see the difference. So I'm going to put that over there. Grab this needle. I should really do this with brown because I think it will match it better. And, we want the thread to pretty much disappear against the beads and
Right.
against the background. So I don't know what I was thinking about going with that green.
Yeah, well, thread choice is important.
It is. It really is. And I'm going to use this 457, which is that dark bronze metallic. Probably my all-time favorite, or at least in my top 3.
Yeah, same.
Right. And about the same amount of thread as I normally do with seed beading, about 1.5 yards. Although for demonstration purposes, I could do a lot less, but here we are. Make that little knot around my needle, pull it through, and now I have a little knot at the end of my thread. Get rid of this flotsam and jetsam. And tip out some beads. And I'll show you what I mean about a back stitch. So start that again. Come through from the back to the front. And I'm going to pick up about 4 beads. So we could do back stitch or we could do couching to outline this. And I like couching. It does go a little faster, perhaps, because we're putting on more beads at a time. But I don't know, backstitch seemed to be just a little more satisfying this time around. So I'm going to push my beads against where the thread is coming out of the thread. And I'm going to hold on to this thread. I'm going to put my needle back right down, right in front of that bead. We don't need to leave a lot of extra space, nor do we want those beads to kind of pop up in a caterpillar. We want it to kind of lay flat. And then I'm going to bring my needle back through from back to front in about the middle of that group. And I did 4 here. You could do more if you like. I'm going to do 4, and I'm going to come through those last 2 beads. Okay. So now I'm ready to add more. I'm going to do 4 again. And I'm going to pull it down right to that line. Push my needle against, did I do 5? No, I did 4. Push my needle against the end of the bead, push my needle through. All right. Come back up in the middle. In between the pair and the middle pair of the 4 beads, and then pass through 2 again and come out. Okay. So let me try you one more time, show you one more time, and then I'll do some couching. And we've done these stitches before, so none of these should be a big mystery. Push against that end of that bead with my needle. Pierce through. See how that paper does give me just a little bit of stiffness to sort of work with?
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of bite to it, you know?
Yeah. It don't need a whole lot. You can use cardstock if you feel like you want more. If you were doing a particularly small piece, cardstock might be really helpful because it would give you a little bit more strength, right? So let's do it a couching stitch instead. So couching is going to be more beads on at a time. And it can actually be sort of handy in a curve. Let me show you why. I'm just going to put on a group of beads. Didn't count them. But it's a fatter, longer group than I put on before. And I'm going to position them against that curve. Same thing I did before. Push my needle down at the end of the bead. Pull it through. Now each little pair or so of beads, I'm going to bring my needle up from below. And I'm going to go over the thread that's in the beads. Right? So I'm not going through the bead again. Just going over the thread that's in the beads. So this can be very handy for a curve because I can move down here and I can kind of pull that line of beads into the curve shape. So as you're making a curve, you may want to do fewer beads, but if you want to try the couching, you can do it with a little bit larger number, and it goes maybe just a tiny bit faster, but not a lot. I think it's about the same. There we go. And I'm going to come up again, and I might come up between maybe every 3 and 4 beads. Might be more if I was trying to make a tight curve and I was really trying to control how those beads were laying in that curve.
Mhm.
But couching is a popular stitch, and it does cover a little bit of ground at a time. So one thing I will do when I end of a run of beads, so this could be, the whole curve of the C, or I could do it even oftener. I think what makes a difference. So here we have my line, right? I would want it to be more smooth. So I'm going to bring my needle from the back of the bead, from the back of the work to the front, right at those beads. And I'm just going to send my needle through the beads. So I'm not going through the fabric this time.
Mhm.
This time I'm just going through the beads themselves. And I find this, it's so satisfying that it kind of smooths my line out and makes me feel like my beads are just a little more well done.
Right, a little smoother.
A little smoother. And I think that that's what I'm seeing when I say it's not perfect. I don't really mean it's not perfect. I mean that it's not really as perfect as I would like it to be, or as I see in my brain.
Mhm.
So I would like to be back over here where I was working. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send my needle down to the back side, flip it over, and I'm going to tie off. Now I'm not going to cut the thread. Don't need to do that. But I'm going to make a little knot there and go through a couple times. So if there were something were to happen to this line of beads, there's a bunch that are more controlled. So only
Mhm.
some beads would come off. I'm going to come back up to the front side. I'm going to go through that line of beads. Oops. I'm going to go through that line of beads again. When you get a little knot, don't force it like I do. Oh, come on now. Come on now. That's not, don't be silly. All right. And I'm going to just send my needle back through a bunch of beads here and come out at the working end where I was before.
Nice.
Right? So this allows you to kind of straighten up, filling up the holes of the beads a little bit with thread, gives them a little bit of body. And again, it satisfies my need for it to be a little more perfect, right? Look at
Yeah.
that. How good that
Yeah.
looks like, right?
Yeah, and it smooths, especially along a curve, like you were saying,
Yeah,
Emily, pardon. It really does have kind of that, just a really nice look to it.
right?
Yeah, really good.
So then I would continue and go all the way around to come
Mhm.
up to finish this.
Mhm.
So a couple of things that I might do, I might choose to do, and I'm going to move my needle over. So I'm going to go down to the back side and I'm going to move it into the filling in space. To do a short stack, think of this like a tiny little fringe, a very short fringe. I'm going to grab a delicate spacer. And I got to say, this galvanized Duracoat Gold,
Yeah.
it looks like $1 million, doesn't it?
Yeah. A
Come on.
a delicate spacer, the spacers, both the spacers and the drops, are just they're so good for this kind of textural
Yes.
stitching, you know?
So I'm going to put it on my thread and pick up. I need another bead to be the stopper end, right? So this is like a fringe. If this was a fringe hanging down from an earring that I was stitching,
Mhm.
this would be where I would turn around. And this is kind of a fun point. You can actually move this stitch around quite a bit where this position is before you kind of commit to it. So I'm
Mhm.
skipping the 11 at the end, stitching down through the spacer, right? I'm going to come up here and do another one. This is a great fill-in stitch. So,
Mhm.
we're making that outline and then we're going back and we're filling it in. Since this C doesn't have a straight back like the E or the B did, I
Mhm.
think the filling in is a nice choice. Um, Otherwise, we can do a design with our bugle beads, which is another great use of bugles. So this is almost like another outline. We could have outlined it in these stop stitches, right? Instead of doing that row of seed beads, we could have done the stitch all the way around. Would have been absolutely perfectly fine.
And Janice is asking, Emily, can you show us after you stitch it a little bit? Can you raise it a little bit to the camera just so we can see a little bit about what you've got going on there? Yeah. And look at how how textural, I mean, that Miyuki back just a little, keep going back. Yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good in focus. But it does give it like a base.
It's got some dimension to it for sure.
Yeah. Nice.
Right? Let's do one more of those and then I will put some bugles on here.
Yes, bugles.
Bugles are super fun to play around with. And they can give us not only dimension, they give us kind of an interesting dimension, but they allow us to have a little bit of movement in this sort of static world of attaching these beads down.
Well, the herringbone that you did in that bee, everyone's in love with that.
Yeah. Doesn't that look great like that?
It does.
Okay. So here's a good place to tie a quick knot because I'm going to move on and do something else. So this isn't a bad spot to do a little knot. And, you know, you do you for as many knots as you want to do. I don't do them very often. I typically do them kind of when I'm stopping a section. I've done a little distance. I'm going to stop and do something else. So let's do that herringbone. That's super easy to do.
Yes.
Because I want to do it up here, I'm going to do it up here in a little, like I did on the bee. I'm going to actually cut this thread. That's a long way to go and having an exposed sort of length of thread on the back of that. And I think it would be smart to just cut my thread and start again. So the herringbone is super easy. I ended up getting both my threads in that knot. All right, I only need one. And here we have some bugles. So this is the longer of the bugles. We could have done the shorter one as well. So a shorter bugle.
It's the size 1, and then the longer ones are the size 2, right?
Right. So, you know, I love that 457, right? In any color. You know, there's the smaller bugle. But the long bugle is quite nice to work with. And I'm going to start up at the top here on this one. I feel like that's too far into the curve. Let's go back here. Let's go over here. Okay. Yep. So when you look at bugles on your needle, occasionally, I was going to see if I could find a broken one. Occasionally you'll find one with kind of a chipped off edge. Right,
kind of like a rough edge.
Yeah, they're real sharp and they will cut your thread. And again, I'm gonna choose. I can choose what kind of a pitch that I want to have to this. And you know what? I'm not happy where I positioned this, so I'm going to back up my train of thought here. I should have gone further to the edge of the C. So.
Well, and that's the beauty about this. This is kind of a smaller piece that you can kind of, you know, if you do a few stitches in and you're like, nope, not right.
Yeah, don't love that. You know, okay, you can back it out. It's not a hard, and that is another good reason for knotting off occasionally is you give yourself like I can tear it back, but I don't want to go that far back. And so you can tear it back to just to a certain point, and that's kind of nice. I mean, it is a little bit of a saving grace. My needle and thread needed a little lip balm on it.
Yeah, a little bit of
chapstick. Yeah, sometimes that helps keep your thread. Oh, and I'm working with that thread color the same color as my skin, and that's a pain in the neck. Sorry, not at my focal length that I would prefer.
Yeah.
But with a fiber thread like this, if you can get part of it through the eye, usually you can pull all of it through.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm going to take this back to my focal length, guys.
Yeah, do it.
Over
I
here.
get it. I get it.
Sorry.
So there was a question. Ramona had a question about that Miyuki spacer. It's
Sure.
kind of, pardon me, it's almost like a flat little Hishi bead, almost, or an O bead. It's pretty flat. It's pretty just like Janice is saying, it's a round circle with kind of a softer edge on it. I like using it also as a spacer. You can certainly just string with them. But they're a really great all-purpose bead for sure.
They are a very good team player for sure.
Yep, team player.
Right. All right. So the bugle I'm going to treat as if it was a bunch of beads.
Right.
But I don't, it's not going to make the curves quite as nicely as my other beads would. So it's definitely one that I want to use in certain spots, but not everywhere.
Yeah, you have to be a little strategic about where you place it on straights or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good fill in for sure. But again, when when we're facing a curve, it's only going to bend a certain amount. Okay. And punch through.
Very nice.
Right. This is actually a good bead to kind of work with because it kind of reminds you that you need to, as you're moving along, you need to move down with your needle, right? It's not going to be always exactly at the same height. We're going to have to put our needle from the back down a little lower.
Height.
I know. I had to explain that to somebody the other day, and they looked.
Yeah, that's an old Kate and Emily joke that just I can't help it.
I can't help myself.
No.
Terrible funny joke.
Well,
when you're traveling with your friends and you see something or something happens and it just becomes the icon of the day.
Becomes part of the lexicon.
It does.
Yeah.
So it's just lather, rinse, repeat here, right? Moving them right along down.
And look at how fast it goes. And it's really, I think that negative space or negative, kind of space shape that you're creating, I think lends itself to kind of the next creative interpretation you're going to make around that little bit.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of like that stitch something down and then work your way to the next spot feel to it, for sure. Yeah, I wonder, I don't know what to tell you.
I feel like, though, that when you're creating something like this, or even anything, when you're kind of improvising along, as you start, I kind of describe it as forward thinking in your project. So not only are you in the moment with what you're doing right there, you're also thinking forward to your next step and the step after that, but you're almost not aware that you're doing it. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how, when I'm doing something like this, that's kind of where my brain is locked in.
Yes. And I sometimes, I know I get funny looks at the market. Sometimes I will show someone something and it's a very simple, plain round bead. And I'm like, but it just feels really good. They look at me like I'm crazy. There is something about doing bead embroidery that is incredibly meditative. And I described something to someone the other day. I said, kind of doing sorting where it kind of smooths out your brain when you're
Right.
sorting something. And maybe this is something you're not under pressure to do, but it's pleasurable to sort and into color categories, or I was sorting something into an ombre color pattern. And while I was doing it, it was so incredibly pleasurable to just handle the beads, and there was no agenda, there was no time frame, there was no, I'm not in a rush, I'm not hurrying this, I am not
Right.
um, I'm experiencing this as I go. I'm experiencing it. So I do think this is part of what happens with bead embroidery is that you are experiencing this as you work along. And it sort of takes a little bit of time. It's a little bit slow. And so that makes you maybe pay attention to just the pleasure of making something happen right in front of you.
Yeah.
So
Well, I agree with that.
we get all philosophical up in here,
Well, sometimes,
right?
having things that I like that the way you say smooth out your brain. I like that as a reference because my brain is fairly wrinkled.
But it's just that. It's just sort of it's not changing anything really.
Yeah.
It's just smoothing it out.
Yeah.
It's not solving it. I shouldn't say changing it. It's not solving anything
Right.
particularly, but it is just kind of smoothing out.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but it's like if you're trying to tidy up your bedroom, the first thing I do is I make my bed
Right. Right.
because that literally is smoothing things out.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Well, it's sort of the big thing as well.
yeah.
It's usually the biggest thing in the room. So,
Yeah.
you know. All right. So there's some herringbone.
Gorgeous, Em. Can you flash that over in the sunlight, Em? Because the sun, we're all enjoying there. Look at that, how we can see that definition.
Do you
I
guys like
think,
the sunlight on my work table? I
yeah,
love.
I think people are really enjoying. Janice commented on how much she likes seeing the sunlight.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I mean,
beautiful.
I could give you a little bit more by raising this other shade, and then you can have all the sun coming in, but maybe that's too much. I don't know.
No, love. It looks great.
Yeah,
Love.
too many bars or something. So,
Yeah.
so backstitch, couching, stop stitch. I guess we can call this herringbone, but it's really just one bead at a time.
Mhm.
And then, on things like this little swirl here, this was where I started this project. Was I outlined
Mm.
this back edge of this bee, and
Mhm.
I literally I did couching to create a little swirl in a little spiral here in the inside,
Mhm.
and that was the beginning. And I went all the way down to there, and I stopped. And when I came back to look at this when it was nearly done, I said, you know what? It needs to go. I need to go around. So I went around. That was one of the last
Mhm.
things I did. I did use some of those little delicate spacers to fill in some little gaps. I used the tile beads, just using both holes. That does not get any simpler to use those tile beads.
I really love how that gives the bee some definition across the front. It's a really good use of that bead.
And so knowing that I was facing curves here, and you're going to face a lot of curves with these letters, right? Almost all the letters are going to have some kind of a space where you're going to need to bend around into something
Mhm.
else. So I did some just simple rows here of couching. So that's putting down a row of beads, stitching it down, and then going back and looping across the thread that's in the beads, right? And then I did these curved rows with couching to give me that curve. I wasn't quite sure that these telas were going to make the cut, but I
Mhm.
really like how they flare out a little bit. I was
Mhm.
originally going to do bugles, but I did a lot there. I want something else. So the tilas are super. They're super easy. They just go down by putting a thread through one hole, putting a thread through the next hole.
Yeah, they look great.
Any easier, right?
Really great. And again, for those of you who have joined in a little later, you can find what do I want to say? You can
The,
find all the letters, all of that. It's all on beadshop.com. And I would recommend going to our bead embroidery. Um, you can find Emily's wealth of projects for both that pear, that little stained glass piece. We've done some other stuff where we did it. I think this was years ago. We
do another. I feel like there's one more.
we used a disc, remember?
Oh, you're right. We did a little
Yeah.
peyote stitch around it.
Around it, and I did some fringe coming
Right.
out of mine, I think.
Yeah.
So that one was from way back in the
Yeah.
day. But yeah, super fun.
Yeah.
Super fun.
This one's got some cubes. These are like those little mini cubes, and these are 6s and
Mm-hmm.
8s and 11s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, really nice. Janice is asking, Emily, are you actually Emmeline Brenda Miller? And that is actually no, but
So I thought I would take this one and show you what it looks like to finish it off
oh,
and
great.
put it back on it, right? Because
Great.
that's kind of the next big
The
project.
next step. And we have
Let me-
just
let
the
me-
time. That looks great. And
let
the
me-
sizes of the beads, Dawn, if you go to the project, you can see, but Emily is using 11s, I think, is her seed bead. Some are the 15s in that E.
Yeah.
And then the bugles are the long ones, the number 2, and then there's the number 1, the shorter bugles. So you could use any of those. But if you go to the project, you'll see a pretty comprehensive list there.
Yeah. And there's no, I don't think there's a bad answer on any of these.
Yeah.
Certainly you can use pressed glass as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you find a pressed glass bead that you like that's kind of on the smaller side. I need
Mm-hmm.
to grab a pair of shears. Pardon me while I
Sure.
stand up and reach over where my sewing machine is
Sure.
and get my fabric cutting shears.
Yeah, you need some good scissors for these.
Yep. I want to tidy up this front edge of this C. It doesn't feel quite square to me. So I'm going to just take a little off there and a little off the top here. Very little. But gotta have those really good shears. I like these Kai scissors.
Yeah, you and I love those Kai sewing
they
scissors.
work really well. So if you're looking for this brand, it's called KAI. And they're quite nice because they're quite light as well. You know, when you're cutting for some time, it's heavy on the hands. So you want to make sure you have something that's comfortable to work with.
I like Kai scissors. They're Japanese made. You can find them online. I have a whole host of them that I use for sewing.
All right. I'm going to use this backing. And this is going to be a slightly sped up version of this because normally I would let my glue dry before I went to the next step. So you're going to get a slightly sped up version here today. Let's see. I need a toothpick and I'm reaching to my recycled bag supply. That was a tip that I got from Kate that, oh my God, what a difference does that make, right?
Right, just a little.
Oh, Lordy. And I have a pin back right here. So pin backs can go either way. They can go vertically or they can go horizontally. I think for this particular project, horizontally is my choice. It's my preference, right? And you really want that pin back to be in about the upper third of your piece. So any lower, getting down to the halfway kind of area, this one's actually a tiny bit low, it will make the pin kind of flop forward as you wear it, right? And you want it to kind of hang up tight. Were you just talking about magnetic pins yesterday or Wednesday? Or
magnetic snaps, actually.
I thought I had one here. Kate and I and our friend Tanya, for several years in a row, have gone to Stitches Wets.
Yeah, may it rest in peace. No more Stitches.
I know.
Oh.
And we do here it is. Oh, good, I found it. We would do a needle punched piece as it was like a demo table for $5.
Oh
And then
my
we
God,
did it every year.
that was like the first thing that we do.
And it was like $5, and they would give you the yarn and the needle punch and the little. We made coasters and or pins, and they gave us these little magnetic pieces. This we could do this. We could find these. I'm sure.
Yeah, we could find those. Those are actually
These are a little bit big,
because
maybe, but
people sell them for like badges for like name badges that don't harm
here's your
clothing.
quote. I had one at Crate and Barrel when I worked at Crate and Barrel. That was our name badge had this little magnet in it, and it was great.
I forgot that they gave us those. I need to find. I'm sure I have one of those somewhere.
You know, it had never stuck very well because we were hurrying,
Right?
and we're like, we gotta go, hurry up, hurry up.
We gotta go. Yeah, next we gotta go to the next fun thing.
Yeah, 3 of us sat there and did that, and I'm sure we could find one that's smaller than this. This is kind of a big one.
Yeah. You know what you could also do, Emily, and what I did, if you look on my Insta, I made a little like sewing box, and I put in a needle minder or a needle rest in there. And what I did was I got about 3/4 inch, really super flat magnets. And on the inside of the box, before I put the lining, I glued a magnet. And then on the outside, after it was all glued, I put another magnet.
Like this little one.
Right. So the magnet that I had, you know, the fresh magnet or whatever, I could put the needles on. But if you needed to, you could sandwich a piece of fabric or whatever between 2 magnets, and it would kind of look like that too.
Yes.
Maybe I'll play around with that.
I mean, I'm sure that this is a happening thing, and I'm sure
100% we could find it.
You know, and it's just nice because it doesn't pierce your clothing. That's a really it's a sellable point right there, you know, that it doesn't make a hole in your shirt or whatever you happen to put it on. So I do pins in kind of the same fashion every time. And there is something about this pin that you need to know. This is inexpensive but very functional little pin. It's meant to either be riveted or sewn in place through the holes. We're going to glue it in place, and it's going to be fine. You want to make sure that you put it on with the opening facing down. So this little gate that rolls across it. Let's see if I get it a little closer to everybody. It's still in focus. The little gate that closes it, you want it to be the opening to the gate to be facing down, so that in case this little guy untwists, it's hanging. It's not going to flop open, right? Upside down, it's going to, under its own weight, open up. So we want that little opening to the gate facing down, okay? And I simply put it on the back of my thing that I would like to have, the pin. I lay my backing fabric over it, and with my fingers, this is a very easy way to do this. Come on now, stay in place. Work with me here now. Come on. All I do is I press down on the pin with my fingers. And it makes a couple little dents in the fabric. And I'm going to take a sharp pair of scissors, and I'm going to cut some little openings for that to pop through. Sorry if you can hear neighborhood watch going on in the next room. Apparently maybe it's the Amazon guy is here with my new stuff.
Oh, nice.
Probably what's happening.
And when you're cutting, like Emily is cutting, the Ultrasuede is non-fraying.
It's not
it's not a woven piece, so that your edges won't fray. But it's always better to cut a little smaller than you might think, and then you can enlarge it just slightly.
do as I say, not as I do.
Because it will.
Every one of us has done it too big.
Yeah, if it's just a little too big, it won't look quite as nice. But if it's smaller, you can kind of, shimmy it around like Emily is doing there, and
Right.
it'll really stay in place.
And it looks so professional and finished and like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. You sure
Shock-
did. Sure enough did, Em.
Shocker. I also have to say I adore the E6000 in these tiny containers.
Yeah, don't you?
It's the best. It's
Yeah.
a little bit stinky, and I tend to put this out on like the balcony or in the garage to dry fully because it's a little odory. I won't deny you that. Um, and even in cold weather, it dries really well. In
Mhm.
2 hours, it's dry and workable, and it doesn't. You can stitch through it still. It doesn't muck that part up,
Mhm.
so you don't have to worry about it. But it can be a little overwhelming odor wise. So
Emily,
be
could you move that a little more to this? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. No, I agree. The little tubes, the thing that I love using E6000, but I felt like I was always throwing my big tube away when it was about a third empty.
Yeah, it's just the little tubes just make so much more sense. It's
Yeah,
just
they're
you can't.
easy to handle, easy to use, and just a couple of projects, the E6000 won't turn on you,
Yeah,
before the
and
tube is empty.
I poke a fairly small hole in there
Mhm.
as usual. I don't want too much coming out at once, and you can also store this one upside down,
Mhm.
which tends to push that glue down to the tip. So I have a little jar that I put my glues in.
Same. I have that same jar, Emily. It's sitting right here.
God, oh my God, we know each
I
other,
I know. Cray.
right? So I'm gonna put this on the back, and I'm gonna push it all together, sandwich it all down. Close that pin up. It's fine, so it doesn't come out. So typically, I would allow this to dry maybe overnight,
Mhm.
or I went in to the next stage.
Mhm.
But we can go forward here. I'm just
Now,
not gonna try and disturb that pin too much, right?
Deb has a good question that I want to address here. Deb is asking about like two-sided tape. She's saying like carpet tape. There's also like a really great two-sided tape I use a lot in bag making. The thing about tape versus, in my opinion, versus the E6000 is when that E6000 is dry, like Emily noted, you can stitch through it.
Yeah,
Tapes will gum your needle.
yeah,
So you could tape, but you want to keep it out of your stitching line. That's the thing. And you really want the edges. If you'll notice how what Emily did was she really was thorough with the way she applied that glue. So the glue acts like a seal around the whole piece. Because you're actually going to be stitching through that glue, right, Em?
yeah. And this is another reason to let it dry
Mm-hmm.
before you kind of go in for that next stage. I'm going to go ahead and do a few little stitches here to show you what it's like, but um, I would always let it dry thoroughly, and I
Mm-hmm.
want it to everything to be kind of sealed up here and pretty secure.
Mm-hmm.
So I it's sort of belt and braces. If I'm stitching around the edge, do I really need the glue? Yes. I mean, I need it to hold the pin back in place, and
Mm-hmm.
I just think it makes it more solid. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a lot of glue, um, and I suppose I don't know. Maybe you could make an argument for putting a iron-on fusible woven non-woven iron-on the back.
Yeah, like Stitch Witchery,
Right.
or you
Right.
could use like, I mean, there are a billion interfacings by like Pellon. There's SF101 that I use. I mean, there's a whole ton.
Yeah. I used to
Um,
use horsehair in the old days.
yeah.
Sort of a woven stiffener
Mm-hmm.
that it can be fusible, but it doesn't have to be. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just another choice, that they use for millinery and
Yeah, I use it for if I'm making a fancy dress, I'll put it in the skirt hem.
right, right. To give it some
Mm.
body. Make
Yes,
it
to make
snap.
it sit
Yeah.
perfectly.
So I've done 2 different types of edging here, but they're really the same. They're just with different beads, right?
Mhm.
And I left out my, I did swoop away some beads just to make myself a little, like, excuse me, to make my life a little easier here.
Mhm.
But I'm just going to do this picot stitch around the edge. I really, gosh, I don't have the 457 and an 8, which I can't quite believe.
Hmm.
One thing I do want to say about beads is if you're choosing beads for this project, it's really nice to have both a couple of sizes of the same color.
That makes
Because
sense.
sometimes you want to have another shape in that same color, and you're not adding another element. You're just
Mhm.
adding another size. Like I have
Mhm.
um, these 2 in this green, right?
Right,
So
so you're adding a little texture.
right. So I think it's not a bad thought if you are buying things specifically for this to maybe get the 11 and the 8 or the
Mhm.
11 and the 15, just to give yourself that little option.
Mhm.
Having a 15 in those kind of neutral colors is really nice if you have a little bit of space that you need to fill in and you just don't have the bead to make it happen, right? Um, I just think it's a thought.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm
One
gonna
of the sorry, this
yeah,
I found just one more question that I wanted to Deb is also saying, so will the E6000 pucker, will it make it look uneven? And I have not had that experience.
no puckering, no
Mm-mm.
unevenness.
Yeah.
And you saw what I put on there, Deb. I did not put a gloppy amount.
It was
So
a nice thin veneer.
really thin layer, and E6000 is it doesn't make the Ultrasuede warp, and part
Mhm.
of it may be that I'm not entirely saturating the Ultrasuede with the glue.
Mhm.
So if you think of a sponge, right, you can stick it in water, and the sponge will kind of absorb up the water. Because this is a polyester, it's not porous itself. So E6000 on cotton might not be as fun as this,
Right.
because it's the cotton fibers are porous. So these fibers themselves are not porous. They don't absorb. They get wet, but the fiber itself, the smallest fiber, doesn't really absorb anything. It's a
Mhm.
closed plastic. It doesn't go anywhere. So it's absorbing only into the spaces between the fibers,
Mhm.
not absorbing into the fibers themselves.
Mhm.
So I have never had a problem with the E6000.
And
Um,
Alita just said E6000 tends to self-level. So I could see
oh,
that.
good. Yeah, I could see
Mhm.
that too. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And like I said, I'm really not putting on very much. It's just enough to get everything stuck together. And
Mhm.
if I were to go back and look at this in a day when it had really dried, I wouldn't be able to peel it apart. Like I can probably peel it apart now. I probably could have put a little bit more on that one edge, but I'm not gonna be able to undo what I've just done. So
Mhm.
it's a done deal.
Mhm.
E6000 also stays flexible. So one of the things you can use E6000 for, which is really nice, is if you want to glue rocks to a flower pot or tiles to a flower pot.
Mhm.
6000 is super good because it's not affected by temperature. So cold temperatures are not going to make it get brittle and like pop off.
Mm. Mhm.
E6000 also acts a little bit grout like or a little bit like cement. If you're making a stepping stone for the garden and you
Mhm.
have cement, you can push things into it and have them be kind of partially contained in
Stay
the
there.
cement.
Yeah.
E6000 will do that as well, and it's a really nice way to glue something flat to something round or something round to
Mhm.
something flat because it kind of fills in the gaps there. So if I was going to want to glue a marble to a flower pot, a round marble, it will fill in the gaps where the marble's just barely touching, right? But
Mhm.
it'll give it enough grip to kind of hold it in place. So
Mhm.
I do like it, and I'm not an affiliate merchandiser of it or anything like that.
No.
You don't get
No,
any.
but we sell a ton of those little We carry it in the small little tubes, and we sell a ton of it. We love it.
And commercially, you can actually find it in black as well,
Oh, interesting.
which is kind of cool if you're going to use it for more
Hmm.
crafty kind of things. The black
Hmm.
is super looking. It's glossy.
Oh, I haven't seen it. We'll have to
Yeah.
take a look for that.
You
Really
have the Cap
interesting.
Plastics by you, Kate? I wonder if you have one in front.
No, not in the valley.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
that's too bad.
No, no.
So I'm going to start bordering. And the only advice I have for you on doing any kind of a border is don't start at the corner.
Right.
It just makes your life hard. Start in the middle of any of the sides and work around the corners and then come back to the spot you started. And it seems like a natural spot here to start kind of at the bottom. And I'm going to bring my needle in the middle of the layers, so through the paper and through that front layer, pull it up. That hides my knot inside there, right? And I'm going to do that little picot edging, which is so much fun. And it's simply to pick up 3 beads to start with on my needle and thread and go through all the layers now. And then I'm going to come back up through that last bead, that 3rd bead.
And Emily, that's just how
Never,
you picot on the end.
Goes with these delicate spacers, and I don't think they're going to work. So,
Ah, that's what you're
the
using.
trial.
I
thought
see.
we would try this.
But that picot is what you also use, like on any seed bead edging. Same, right? Like if you were picoting, you use that stack of 3.
It kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what I'm doing. So not necessarily. Like if I was going on the edge of a loom woven piece,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to stitch through the edge of the fiber. I'm going to go in the beads.
Right, in the bead. Right. But it's that same kind of look, I guess, is what I was trying to.
I'm not sure that this is actually going to work with these delicate spacers,
With those. Mm-hmm.
which I was kind of hoping it would, but let's chalk that up to a good experiment, but not one that I think is working. So I'm going to undo that and pull those beads off. So the reason I backed out of that was that delicate spacer is so much bigger than the 11. And it's not as stable width-wise as these 8s are. So I'm going to back up my thought process just a moment here. And, sometimes we have thoughts and do things on the fly, and it doesn't always work. So that's okay.
But Emily, you would mix bead shapes in this, right? I mean, we've talked about that before. You would use delicas, you would use rocales, you would use cubes in all the sizes. So
delicas are probably one I wouldn't use quite as much. And it's sort of like a short bugle.
Right.
And it'd be kind of flat, and it's maybe not going to handle curves quite as much as I might want them to.
Right. Okay, that's good. That's a great tip.
I mean, these Tilas don't handle curves at all. They just gap, right? There's a gap there. That doesn't sit close together like on the straightaway, nice and close. And then the minute it starts to curve, there's a gap.
A little gap, right?
So I could do delicas, but there would still be a little gap. It would be even smaller. Sorry that I have another project I'm working on I can't talk about yet.
Oh, I know. I'm working on my project right now for the Great Bead Extravaganza, Emily.
Oh, when is that? Is that this weekend?
No, it's in June. It's in January.
Oh.
No, I'm getting a head start on it. I know, shocker. It's January 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Oh, good for you. I got 3 beads on here. Let me get back to work here. Starting over. 3 beads. I'm going to take a small stitch about the size of 2 11s side by side. Oh yeah, that E6000 is already starting to dry. I can feel it being a little tougher to go through. That's all right. And I'm going to come back up through that last bead on the group. And it's going to pull everybody into place here. Work with me, beads. Work with me, not against me. You're not
That's right.
working against me. There we go. Oh, I see. That was my mistake. I looped through the thread. Got it. Okay. So this is going to pull those 2 beads side by side. So I have like a little picot that sticks out. Now I'm going to just do 2 beads because it's going to be this sticking up bead and this laying down bead next. So every stitch from here on out is just 2 beads. The first one you do is 3, and then from then on out it's only
Right. It's 2.
right. And this goes along. Oh, I did it twice. What am I doing that I'm doing wrong?
Well, we're nearing the end, and maybe you, like I, am thinking about lunch.
Oh, what am I going to have for lunch?
I know.
Stop it, Kate.
Yeah, Emily, you have to come visit because while you're stitching, yesterday we had all kinds of people come through, and there's this great sandwich place.
You know how I feel about a Sammy.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this kind of cool small business. And he makes these really amazing sandwiches, and his Insta is let me see, My Guy Market here in Fresno. Emily, they do a chopped cheese.
Nice.
And he is like this sandwich hipster, but I saw him come into my studio last night and I'm like, you're Eddie from My Guy's Market, and I'm a little obsessed with you on Instagram. And so I, of course, made it weird, but it was great. So he's super cool. So a big shout out to you, Eddie, and and the grind. He is making those sandwiches 1 sandwich at a time. So yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I now am the weird lady at my Italian deli market here because I order bread ahead of time from Acme because I miss my Acme bread, and I haven't really found anything here I like as much. So I have to go to Cordy Brothers like every 3 weeks, and I call up and I'm like, "Hi, I want to order some bread," and they're like, "Oh, okay, what do you want and when do you want to get it?" And I give them my order, and they're like, "You're sure you want this much?" I'm like, "Yeah,
yeah." Yeah, I
I
promise you.
I kind of can't live without it now, and I just have it in the freezer, and it's all good,
Yeah.
Time for me to order that bread again, and then when I get there, there's a lot of, "Oh, you ordered bread? Really?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's me.
And I'll wait. You go in the back and find my order.
Yes.
So
Yeah, no, I fully fangirled on him, but it was pretty awesome. We also have a good Italian deli here in Fresno. It's called Sam's Deli. Really great. It's been around forever and ever and
well,
ever.
I can't wait for you guys to come and try Cordy Brothers because they have all of the weird alcohol that you
Yes.
possibly want. I mean,
Yes.
every inch, Slivovitz and all kinds of weird stuff.
Yes.
You and Chris are gonna love.
Oh,
And
love.
my-
Now everybody's talking about sandwiches and tea sandwiches and egg salad. I make a pretty mean egg salad sandwich.
I might actually be having tuna. That's kind of one of my favorites.
Yeah, tuna salad. It's viral now, the Matthew McConaughey tuna salad recipe.
I'm not a real big wasabi person. So
Yeah. Oh, see, I'm a big.
I don't know why I don't like horseradish. I like other spicy stuff, but
give me all the wasabi, every single of the wasabi, I'll tell you. So now, Emily, you just turned the corner. Will you talk about how you gauge that?
I just did it.
Perfect. Excellent.
There's no gauging. It's about the same amount. I mean, all I did was just made the corner. I'm just went around the corner.
Right. And so the stitches, let's talk about your stitches real quick so I don't have to talk about egg salad sandwiches because I am ready for lunch.
Now I'm hungry.
So you are piercing.
I'm stitching about 2 size 11s apart. Let me get a pointer. Hold on. Bear with me. So I'm stitching about 2 size 11s apart, right? Here's one, and there's going to be another one sitting right. And I want them to be fairly close together. right? I got to push it up there, and I'm going to come back up through that same one, right? I want them to be fairly close together. That will keep the picot kind of sitting up on the edge.
And you can see if Emily, if you put that through the sunlight, you can actually see the openings around those 11/aughts and how even they are. But it really, I think that edge stitching, if you really kind of, compare the stitch you're making to the stitch that came before it, you're going to be pretty, pretty right on. It looks fantastic.
This one I should really redo because I didn't really look at this bead.
Oh yeah, see how skinny it is? I can see that.
And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. I'm gonna
I get you.
because that's gonna bug me.
Yeah, it's gonna bug you.
And
so you
and
would
I'm gonna
just
go a distance. So
you would just continue around the whole thing.
Indeed.
Right?
Yep. And when you get to the end, you're only gonna do one bead. So you start with 3. You mostly do 2 for the rest of the way. And then when you get to the end, you're only going to have 1. Right?
Nice.
This is my end right here.
Right.
I'm just going to end up putting that 1 bead and connecting through there and tie it off.
Call it a day. And you tie a knot.
I do. I tie a knot and I'll stick my needle like back in and maybe come out to the edge, pull the end through.
Pull the end through and then clip the thread.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's my story.
Well, any other tips or tricks that we need to know for this? We're getting.
I think it's fairly just carry on. I think if you feel like you get to a spot where you're sort of stuck about what you're going to do next, I think it's not a bad idea you can take a break. I mean, that's always good for your eyes and your fingers and stuff. Take a little breather. But it might be great to just move to another spot and do some work over there.
Right.
There is a little bit of thread management that comes to play with this. If you have lots and lots of started and you don't finish any of them, you may be setting yourself up for some like tangles as you're working, right?
Right. That makes sense.
This one, I did the outline and then I outline. And then I filled in. And I did have some spots where it did get a little tangly. My pieces aren't perfect. They're okay. So I think if you get bored or if you feel like you need a break, go somewhere else and work. Put an outline around something. Finish off the serifs. Finish that part off. And then give yourself time to kind of mull it over and think about it. And then go back in and do it. If you find yourself with a space like those beads right there, a little bit loose, probably could have had one more down stitch there. So you could actually go around and kind of just check yourself if you're feeling like you're kind of at a point where you're not sure what to do next. Take a little moment and travel around your little world that you've made. And if you find a spot that looks a little loose or a little frumpy, take a finish it. Go back through the beads again with your needle and thread. No one will know that you did that. Just like we go through them again to kind of even everything out. No one knows. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. Right? So
it looks great.
I do really love this. I hope you guys enjoy doing this as well. I won't spoil the surprise, but we have more bead embroidery coming up for next year. JP and I have already and we're doing amulet bag in January. So we've got.
Sure are.
We're going to throw it back to 1992 called and.
A 1992 called. They want their amulet bag back, but I am in it to win it.
Yep, it's going to be it's a really pretty one.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And again, it's I think kind of a lovely special gift to give someone, something where you've spent some time on it and you've tailored it maybe to their needs or their desires, and that's kind of a fun thing. So
no, I think it's great. Margaret is saying, Emily, she's now officially obsessed with these pins. Thank you. So great.
I mean, if you if you right now, blazers are kind of in style again, big blazers for women.
Yeah.
If you had a big lapel and you put 3 of these on there, oh
Yeah.
my god, what a statement that would be making, right?
No, I love it. I love, as you know, a statement pin.
Love an
So
initial. Yeah.
really fantastic. Well, Em, I'm going to put all of us back
Okay.
on the, um,
I'll stop stitching.
it's all right. You can keep
Or finish
stitching.
one stitch and then I'll be done.
You can keep stitching. Here we
Just,
are.
smooth my brain while we do this.
Hmm.
Um, I won't see you all on the internet here with Bead Shop again before the holiday. So I want to make sure everybody knows to have a really nice winter season. We have Christmas, we have the solstice, we have Kwanzaa, we have Hanukkah. Is Hanukkah happening right now? I feel like
No,
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah happens later. I think the second night of Hanukkah or first night is also coincides with Christmas Eve. So
Oh,
it's further,
perfect.
it's further down.
And have a lovely, safe, sane New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I usually take some time between Christmas and New Year's off just because I'm tired and I feel like I need a break at wintertime, and we have the solstice coming up. That's always a lovely evening. And we can count on the light beginning to come back again after the solstice. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm certainly feeling it's getting dark at 4:30, Ah,
I know. It's like, but we'll be to solstice and then the light will return.
yes.
We're
Yes. So our little
being
winter
cozy.
miracle happens every year. And, I just want everybody to have a really nice holiday time season,
Yeah.
whatever
Same,
one you
same,
happen to get to. So
same, same.
or multiples, do them all. I mean, heck,
Why
my
not? I mean, it's Friday. Let's just celebrate that we made it to Friday, my friend. I'm going to
indeed.
celebrate. I'm going to have my coffee in my holiday mug.
Oh, I finished all my peppermint tea. Oh no.
Oh, well.
Mm,
So, we will
ah,
see you, as you say, after the new year.
yes.
There is, you've got so many fun things coming. Yeah, Emily's amulet bag is you're gonna rock it. It's gonna be super fun.
I hope
These
everybody likes
pins,
it. It was really inspirational and really fun to make. So
yeah, no, super fun. You folks are gonna see me a little later on today.
oh, yeah.
I'm coming back 3:30 my time, that's Pacific time, so that's 6:30 Eastern. I'm going on with my buddy Jen Cushman, and we're going to talk about our upcoming France retreat.
So
So
exciting.
it's going to be fun. So join in if you want. The link is over on our YouTube channel. It's also on my personal YouTube channel, so you'll see all of that. We're going to talk a little bit about it, talk about the expectations of what you're going to do. If you have not sewn before, doesn't matter. Especially some of these techniques that Emily has taught us today, we will be incorporating into like fabric embellishing and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So thank you once again. You folks know.
Thanks, JP. Thanks, Drea.
That you can find us. Emily, I won't forget. You can find us all over the web. Facebook, our really fantastic Facebook group called the Bead Table. Instagram, if you make anything and you post it, please tag us at beadshop.com so we can share that around. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe, and notification button. Thank you so much for watching us live. And thank you also for watching us on the replay. If it's not for you folks, we wouldn't be here being able to do what we do, which is share the love of creativity through the medium of beads. So we appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great end of the year and on to 2025.
All right. Fantastic, Em. I'll talk to you soon, and I will see all of you next week on Bead Shop Live. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.